All right, hello, welcome. Last day of English, like it says on the board. So pretty much today the plan is we're gonna practice pretty much the whole time. And we'll just run over any issues we have. If we have to stop and like focus on some issue or something that we're having, then we'll talk about that for a little bit. But I don't anticipate that happening. But we'll see. We'll see. If you guys, last time we practiced English together, we used the bubble sheet. If you want to, you can do that today too. If you don't want to, don't. But just know that's how it's going to be on the test. So if you want to simulate it a little more real, that's okay. Okay. Everybody has their ACT 10 book, hopefully. Okay, and I'm thinking the first run we do here, we'll do 2 passages instead of 1. We normally do 1 at a time. So I'm thinking it just turned off. We'll run 18 minutes down, and online people, I'm hoping you guys can see this. Can everyone in person see this? Okay, so I'll have the time running up here. Sorry, are you blocked a little? I don't know what I'm gonna do with it. We'll find out a way, but maybe if I move it over a little. Is that no? Okay. I guess just stand up if you need to see it. I don't know. But yeah, so we'll run down 18 minutes, and just know on the actual test you guys won't have like a analog clock telling you like how much time is left. There's gonna be a clock in the room somewhere. And I don't know if Manoj just talked to you guys about this, but a lot of times people bring watches so they don't have to keep. Like in my test room, the test was here and the clock was like back there. So like if I didn't have a watch, I'd be breaking my neck trying to look at time all the time. So like having a watch with you is another good thing. So get used to when you guys are practicing leading up to the test, get used to reading it off of a watch. But for now, we'll just put like a visual representation of it up there so you can keep track of your pacing. And I know time really hasn't been an issue for us as a class so far, so we shouldn't have any problem. Can we go to test number 6? For me, that's page 427. I don't know if that's the same for you guys. Online people, did you guys hear that? Test number 6.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put that up here just in case someone joins late. All right. Okay. So we'll probably just run through all the way for 18 minutes and then come back together and talk about any trickier questions and then any other questions you guys have. Does that sound okay? All right. I will start if this thing was on. I will start the 18 minutes now. All right. Good luck.
All right.
So there's 18 minutes. Did we do okay on time? Everybody got down? Alright. Nice. So I think we'll read through the answers for the first passage, talk about those ones in questions, and then we'll go to the second one. We'll like break them up like that. Is everyone ready? Alright. I'm sorry. Online people, if you guys couldn't see, I know a couple of you came in late. We were doing practice test number 6 out of the ACT 10 book. So if you guys could try to follow along from here, I know. I'm sorry if you guys came in late. Okay, number 1 was A. Number 2 was H. Number 3 was B. 4 was H. 5 was D. 6 was F. 7 B. 8 J. 9 B. 10 J. 11 C. 12 F. 13 C. 14 G. And 15 D. Okay, so a couple of these ones are similar to some stuff we've talked about, like question 5 is a really, really, really good example of that economy rule that...
Sorry. Could you repeat number 4? I think it skipped out.
Yeah, number 4 was H.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, number 5 is a really good example of that economy rule we've been talking about, where if you can say something in less words, let's just say it in less words. So, I'm trying to hit all the key points before I leave you guys. This is my last time. So, that's one of the key things I would hope you guys remember, is that economy is a big, important thing on the ACT English test. So, if you can say stuff in less words, please just pick the more simple answer. So, a lot of the times on the test, less is more. And that's going to come up all the time. And I'm glad she brought up number 4 from online as well. I think there's a little thing with pronouns. The way to answer these questions are tricky because you have to think back to what that word is referring to always. And number 4, it's easy not to see what the answer is supposed to be referring to. So we're talking about the woodpecker here, not... So since we're talking about the specific woodpecker, we want it to be its, not the. So, yeah. I don't know. I don't have many more comments on that. But just, pay attention to what we're referring to, specifically with pronoun questions. Number 8, I'm hoping we were active with the pencils. This can be a really hard question if we don't read the command here. We really want to highlight, the main point there was the most specific information, new specific information. So the one that is most specific was the answer J. So yeah, just keep the pencils active. That's really important. Number 10 is a pretty interesting one as well with these organizational ones. And the passage we get to next is going to have an interesting take on some organizational stuff too. So we'll talk about that when we get there. But organizational questions tend to be really difficult, and I think we've talked about it a little bit in the past where we want to look for pairs of sentences that fit together, or some that when you're reading the paragraph you might come through and say, this sentence feels wrong, maybe I need some more information. And most of the time it's a feel thing, but there are, if you can draw connections, that can be really helpful. That can be really helpful to figure out if you don't feel it. So here I think the big feel was sentence 4 and sentence 3 kind of felt out of place. Something was wrong there. And it was pretty clear. I thought 1 and 5 were pretty clear that 1 had to have been the opener and 5 had to have been the closer. Did anybody pick no change? Okay, yeah. Did anybody else? Did everybody else pick?
I did.
Yeah, okay.
I did.
It's completely easy to pick no change here because 3 and 4 was the issue, but I don't think it's very clear. This is an especially tricky one. Maybe it would have been a little more difficult to do by feel, but I think the thing that the book wanted you to recognize was that sentence 3 and sentence 5 really flow together. So I wanted you to realize that those two should be closer together, and it feels, as you read it right now, that sentence 4 is kind of interrupting. So, again, we want to look for pairs there, and the pair that they wanted you to find was that 3 and 5 should have been together. So, not another pretty hard one, but keep an eye out for organizational questions. And if you need to spend, that's why we practiced that punctuation so much on week 1, was that we could spend more time on questions like this where you can really even like read the paragraph over and over again in different orders if you want to. And since all of us are doing so good on time, I don't think that's a bad idea. Number 11, I feel like this is a pretty straightforward question, but we've talked about this before. Answer choice B. Someone who hasn't answered it before, so you two can't and you two in the back can't. What is answer choice B called? You guys remember this? You guys know, right? You guys know? Good. At least they go. Does anyone online, do you guys know what that's called? Number 11, answer choice B has an issue, like an issue we've talked about before a little bit.
Comma splice, maybe?
Good. Comma splice. Okay. Anyway, they're going to show you a lot of comma splices. I don't really care that you know that that's what it's called, but you're going to see this mistake a lot. So just know you can't. Comma is not a very strong form of punctuation. So in this scenario, you need something a little stronger. And then the last one I had a note on was 15. This was another sort of organizational thing where it gave you like a fragment or an entire sentence, I guess, and it wanted to add it, where should you put it? And again, we're looking for some sort of like connection between two sentences. Sometimes you can do these by feel, but mostly you want to look for connections. And the sentence that they're considering adding is talking about these 15 sightings, like that's so annoying, 15 sightings, so many. And then you go into the passage, into that paragraph, and look for where are they talking about a bunch of sightings. And how I figured this one out was I went and saw sentence 4, where they're talking about there's so many flood of bird watchers. So then I figured that, okay, 15 is a lot, we should put that right before there. So that's how you look for a pair, and then you can normally solve these kind of problems from there yeah. Does anybody have any other specific questions, or did I not explain one all the way through? In person, we're good? Online, you guys have any?
Sounds good.
Good? Okay. Let's go to the next passage then. We'll start with question 16. You guys good? All right. 16 was G. 17 D. 18 F. 19 C. 20 H. 21 D. 22 F. 23 D. 24 G. 25 B. 26 H. 27 C. 28 F. 29 A. And 30 G. Online people, you guys got that? I know it cuts out a lot.
Yeah.
Okay. I want to start with another little strategy we've talked about a little bit before. Right on question 16, actually. So remember with the not questions, we like to underline not and draw like a little line to remind ourselves that we're picking the worst answer, not the best one. So just keep doing that. I know it can be kind of annoying to use your pencil that much, but it's going to help you minimize any mistakes that you're going to make on the test. And conveniently, we had a common splice here as well, actually, so cool. That's a bad answer. And then there's a little trick we've talked about in the past that's going to come up one more time on this passage, and that's when you have two answers that are exactly identical, other than one change in punctuation, for example, but two of the same strength. So like a period and a semicolon are the same strength of punctuation, right? So answer choice H and J both have those two differing kinds of punctuation, but the same everywhere else. The ACT is never going to make you pick between those two, so you can eliminate them both. So, and I know I mean, maybe you wouldn't had to have done that for a question that, isn't super difficult, but on other ones it can be really helpful if you have identical stuff and you can knock it out. 17 was like a tense question. I hope we didn't really have too much trouble. That was kind of an interesting one though. Just keep in mind what tense you're in, refer back to the sentences before, if we're struggling with tense at all. What did I have? 24 is back to that thing we've talked about in the past. When you have a question that's asking you yes or no, yes because, no because, no because, try your best to figure out yes or no first before we try to go into the question. So were we okay on that question? Did we do okay? I think that was actually a pretty difficult yes or no. Normally these ones aren't too bad, but I thought this one was pretty tricky.
Which one?
24, yeah.
I got it wrong.
Which one did you pick?
I picked J.
J. I was gonna say I think J is probably the second best answer. Did you eliminate?
It's so random to me.
Yeah.
It's just weird. It's like that's wrong.
Mhm. Yeah, it feels kind of out of place, doesn't it? So did you eliminate yes and yes right away?
Yes.
And then you were picking between the no's? Okay. From that standpoint, then I would completely agree with you. I would pick J if I had eliminated the yeses. But the reason I kept the sentence was because the next one, yeah. So because how the little box that tells you, that indicates where the question is? This is an important little tip, so pay attention to this. If the 24 was, that little box was on the line above it, at the end of the last one, it indicates hey, we're adding to the end, and if it's on the next thing, and then it's adding to hey, this is where I'm going to put it onto the next paragraph. And that actually makes a huge difference. If this box was on the line above you, I would totally get it. That I would probably pick J too. Because it wouldn't be relevant to the paragraph before this. But since the 24 is placed on the beginning of a new paragraph, I always read at least one or two sentences after to make sure I understand what the paragraph's about, and then it'll give you a little bit more context as to if this sentence is relevant or not. Because without that sentence, then yeah, it feels really random and kind of irrelevant. But then the sentence after kind of gives you a little bit of context that okay, maybe this makes sense. Does that make sense kind of?
Yeah.
Yeah. So with ones that start paragraphs, introductory sentences specifically, I would read a few sentences into that paragraph before answering the question. But yeah, that was a pretty hard one. And then there's on 26, that thing where we talked about crossing off two answers at the same time is kind of important here too. I think 26 was probably the hardest question on this one. I think it's really tricky because transitional words are kind of something that gets skipped over a lot in people studying. So maybe a lot of people don't know what moreover means. It's kind of a weird, you don't hear moreover a whole lot. But the reason I was talking about that cross out two things, I'll let you guys in on my thought process of how I answered this question. I started with realizing the connection between the sentence before and the connection after is normally what you're looking for with transitional words. I found the connection to be it's okay, this is what it is, this is a detail supporting that idea. So I crossed out however, because however is, you normally would compare something contrasting. So that's not, so I crossed out that one. Then I looked at, for example, and for instance are almost identical. How would you pick for example over for instance or vice versa? It's just kind of impossible. So from there you can, like we did with the period and the semicolon, we can cross both of those out because how are you going to pick one over the other? So then you can land on H. But also, if you want the actual explanation for why moreover makes the most sense here, moreover is a similar thing to therefore, where it's kind of connecting two things in a causal way. And example and instance are probably not horrible, but they're more of here's the idea, here's an example of it, versus moreover is telling you here's the idea and this is what follows from it. A little bit different, but it would be a little bit better to just the best test taking strategy here was cross off those two because they kind of mean the same thing. That's pretty much all I had on this passage. Did you guys have any other questions?
On 18, would you have to know what reconvenes means to answer?
Say it again.
On 18, would you have to know what reconvenes in the sentence? Do you know what
I mean, not exactly, I guess. I could see why you would think that, but I think this is more to do with I think this is more to do with the economy, to be honest. I think what the book, let me actually look at the book explanation. I'm curious because I think it has to do with like there's no need for a transition word here. I'm pretty sure that's what the book is going to say, but like I'll give you their actual explanation to see. Yeah, okay. The thing it says is just that there's no causal connection between the paragraph and before and the one that we're writing in.
Okay.
That's, I mean, I guess it would be helpful, but like, I would just, especially with transitional word questions, this is another one, just look at the relationships.
Okay.
And that'll normally just give you what you need.
Okay.
Do you guys, anyone else have any?
So the ACT won't make you choose between like two things that are like almost the same, right?
Yeah, so they're not going to make you pick, like, in a vocabulary question, they're not going to pick between, like, humorous and comical. Those are, like, kind of the same
Okay.
thing. So, like, in general, if you see stuff that's, like, really, really identical, and everything else is held constant in the answer choices, I would eliminate them both.
Okay. Sounds good.
Does anyone else have any online? Okay, cool. What's our time look like? Let's do one more. And before I let you guys go on passage 3, there's a little note at the top of passage 3 that says, like, oh, the paragraphs might not be in order, you should pay attention to that. This is the only time when they give you a message like this, I would pay a little bit closer attention to actually reading. Normally I tell you guys you don't have to read every sentence, you don't. And that holds true very much, but I would maybe pay a little more attention to the paragraphs and the actual content. Normally we don't really care about what they're writing, we just care about if it's correct or not. Now, I would care just a tad, just so if they do ask an organizational question, they're like, oh, which paragraph should go where? We're a little bit more prepared for that. So, at least sort of know the main idea of every paragraph. Just keep that in mind. We'll go back to 9 minutes here. Is everyone ready? Good? All right. And you can start. All right. So there is 9 minutes. We did okay on time on this one too? Everybody got done? All right. You guys ready for answers then? All right. Let's start with, where are we? 31? Okay. 31 was D. 32 was H. 33 was B. 34 was G. 35 was A. 36 was H. 37 D. 38 J. 39 C. 40 F. 41 B. 42 H. 43 D. 44 H. And 45 A. Okay. I don't have as many notes on this one. There's a few questions that target some stuff we've talked about pretty much all of today. So I'll quick give you a rundown. 34 is, I'll let you guys get to it first. That one's really similar to, again, it says specific. That word you're going to see a lot when they're giving you like these top heavy questions. They're going to be like, oh, which one has the most specific information, like all the time. So this one, I think, highlights a pretty interesting point that I think a lot of people mess up on English. And that is that specific and long don't always mean the same thing. So when it asks for the most specific answer, we don't always want to pick the longest answer because sometimes they can just be words without specific meaning. So like, for example, F is longer than G. It's a longer answer, it has more words, but it's not more specific because it just says the science of the human body. Whereas G talks more about specifically anatomy and, so like those kind of things are more specific is what we're looking for. So just don't associate long with specific. Those things do mean different things. So make sure we're looking for more information rather than more words. 38 was a kind of a tricky one. That was an organizational question. Did anyone pick anything different for that one? For 38.
I put where it is now.
Yeah, I think that was my first instinct to put where it is now. But I think, I spent a little bit more time knowing, this question. Normally I spend more time with organizational questions. On the test, that's what was hardest for me was organization. So I normally spend naturally a little bit more time. And obviously everyone's timing plans are different. Some of you might think this is really easy. But, yeah, this one specifically is difficult because this sentence, it feels like either a introductory or concluding sentence. It's some sort of ultimatum. And did you pick where it is now because of the previous paragraph? Whoever said, I don't know, remembers.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's where my inclination was at first too, but I think the book wants you to use that as the ultimatum for the paragraph 2 rather than paragraph 1, which is what was that, Nick? Sorry.
I just saw that the main reason why I chose J in that one was it talked about the last line. It showed an observation, and that's the only reason why I chose J.
That's pretty much what the book is looking for. Again, that's where we were going with this, is just we want to look for those patterns, and or those pairs, I guess, patterns, pairs, whatever. Sentence 4 specifically says there is an observation there. So yeah, I mean, I could see where it is now is also a valid choice, and that's where my first inclination was as well, but keep looking for pairings, and if you want to spend more time, if you have more time, spend more time on organization, because I think those are, for a lot of people, the most difficult questions. And then, I guess 43, I'll say a quick word, and then I'll open it up to questions. 43 is another transitional thing, which can be pretty annoying. But again, if we look for the relationships, even if you don't know, eliminating some answers based off relationships are going to give you a better chance of guessing right. So 43, the sentence before, or I guess the clause before and the clause after here, are related, not like contrary. So though and despite are both words, those are answer choices B and C, are both words we would use when we're contradicting something or like contrasting. So you could eliminate those ones. And then I guess which is just a better feel than considering. I mean, I don't have a whole lot of explanation. I think once you get rid of B and C, it makes the question a lot more manageable. So keep looking for relationships between two things. Look if they're like cause and effect or if they're like contrasting, those kind of things with transition questions. And more often than not, you're going to get the word right from there. Did anybody else here have,
33.
33?
Yeah.
Ooh. Okay, so what did you pick?
I had A.
A, okay. Glad you didn't pick C or D, but C is kind of a, sorry, I know my bad. C, we'll talk about why not those ones first. C, there has to be some sort of punctuation there because to fuse two clauses there without anything is like, it would be like comma splicing, but it's like a step down from that, where it's like, you need some sort of punctuation between here. It doesn't make grammatical sense to jump from those two ideas to each other. So you can't pick C. D, you don't normally say learn task anyway. So like, I think that one's pretty. But, so you said you picked A?
Yeah.
Okay. I think, okay, hold on. Let me think this all the way through. I don't want to tell you something wrong. Okay, I think a comma is a little bit better because often with colons, you're going to see it directly stated, where like colons, they're going to tell you like, oh, the following or something like that, kind of give you like a T to tell you that, hey, use a colon here. I don't think a colon is completely unacceptable. I'm curious to see what the book explains this as because I'm not 1,000,000% sure. I just think it feels like a comma. Oh, okay. Well, I mean, I wouldn't have known that. It says when you stop with learn there, it's a subordinate clause, so you can't use a colon's too strong. Which like, okay, but like I think the feel is a little bit better with the comma. And in general, just remember this doesn't apply to the real world. So like, but on the ACT, most of the time when there's a colon, they're gonna give you some sort of T off to tell you it's a colon, or like the following, or like something like that.
Yeah.
So I would just use colons pretty sparingly on the test. Be careful because you're not gonna see a whole lot of colons. But yeah, I think that's more of a feel one than an actual rule because no one's gonna know like, oh, subordinate clause comma, So did anybody else have any? Online people, did you guys have any? Sorry. Yeah.
Okay. I have a question about like possession in general. So what's the difference between having like the comma in the word and like outside?
Do you mean like that or like that? I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So the difference is one of them is singular and one of them is plural. So like if I want to say my house, I'm talking about my house's chair, like my special chair in my house. Then I would say my house's chair. But if I'm talking about a group of houses, like all of the houses in the neighborhood have the same chair, then I would say the house's chair, like all of them have it, then it would be like this. And nowadays it's still being debated a lot about like, if you have a name like Chris,
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask too.
Okay.
It already ends in an S.
they try not to give you this on the test because there's still some serious debate about this. I feel very strongly on one side. Some people argue if you're saying like Chris's hair, they think you should do Chris's hair like that. I think that's stupid because now it looks like it's plural. I think it should be. I think it should be. I know it looks kind of rancid, but
That looks better though. I mean, it makes more
I think
sense.
it makes more sense. Yeah. So like, I mean, but yeah, this just means if it's outside, that means it's a plural thing. Normally that's the given one.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Okay, we have just a few more minutes, so we're not gonna do any more. Does anybody have any general questions about the ACT English? Anything else you guys want to ask me? No? Pretty much good? Online people, you guys got anything? Whoa.
Oh, so do you do the advanced classes too, or do you?
Yeah.
Or like will we?
Switch. So like, Aubrey's in there right now, and then we'll switch, and she'll come over here and work math with you guys. Yeah. Okay. Anybody else got anything?
I was just listening.
All right. Everyone's cool in here. All right. Well, what is the date of the test again? Do you guys remember?
April 15th.
April 15th? Okay, yeah. So, obviously still a couple weeks away. And I'm not going to be here anymore to practice English. So, kind of keep it in the back of your mind. Maybe study a little bit more if you want to do a little more practice on your own. I recommend the style we've been doing by breaking it up. But as you get closer to the test, I would recommend at least once take an entire practice test. It's difficult because in school, at home, doing homework, we're not used to the rigor of a 4-hour test. Like, even if you're not working for 4 hours, sitting without your phone anywhere in sight in a classroom of you're not allowed to do anything else other than sit there, it can be hard. So I would try to simulate that environment, maybe leave your phone somewhere else and just do every single section or something like that. And that's not obviously going to indicate your performance on the test, but it might just help you be accustomed to something like this, because I'm betting a lot of you haven't had a 4-hour block of just straight work before. So it's a new experience, and I would prepare for it just a little bit at least. I guess that's all I got. Do you guys have anything left? Good? Okay.
Oh, for watches, do you want? Is it good to have a stopwatch or a timer, or how does that?
Yeah, good question. So you can't use an Apple Watch. It's pretty easy to cheat when you have the internet. So they're not going to let you use anything that has any sort of connection capability. I use a really old Ben 10 watch that I had when I was 5, and it functioned fine. But be careful it doesn't make any noise, because I heard a story, the room next to mine, someone got kicked out because their watch had an alarm. And there was someone that got a couple of warnings in my room for sometimes watches tick when they hit an hour mark. You don't want it to make any noise, but if it can't connect to the internet, it's fine. So I guess the stopwatch is fine too. I mean, I've seen people use stopwatches before, and if that's what you're comfortable with, then that works.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, I'll let you guys go then. Have fun on break.
Thank you.